God here. And it's football season. And it's like 100 degrees outside. Sorry about that. Welcome to Season 3 of Gods of Odds, hosted by two of my favorites, Brad Hoyseth and Dave Daba.
Welcome to the Gods of Odds. It is week number 5 of your National Football League season. That is Brad Hoyseth over there in beautiful Southern California. I'm Dave Daba up in Northern California. And I should say that we're here to bring you the top 10 games worth actually spending some money on from a betting perspective over the upcoming weekend. We are recording this on Friday morning, if you will, the aftermath of yet another less than stellar Russell Wilson, Nathaniel Hackett performance. If anything, I would say that if those two were dating, they should stop dating immediately. Just a terrible performance by that Broncos offense. Mr. Hoyseth, care to comment?
Yeah, you said it, the top 10 games worth betting on, and then a couple more we'd like to bitch about. How's that? I mean, because I got to tell you, Dave, how long has Thursday Night Football been going on?
I think we're in double digits. I have to believe we're 10 years in plus. You know,
at some point, it might be an idea to just scrap it. It's just a horrible product on Thursdays. The guys are just not ready to play. There's certain guys that, it takes, after a game on Sunday, it sometimes takes till Tuesday or Wednesday until they're even feeling right, and then you try to institute some sort of game plan. If you're playing on Thursday, you're leaving on Wednesday. I mean, it's just a bad product. And I think last night was another example. Last night was a horrible product.
Terrible.
I was texting you. I'm like, Dave, this is maybe the worst game I've ever seen. And I don't like Matt Ryan, and I used to like Russell Wilson, but the guy that's looking like the genius in all this is Pete Carroll. I mean, maybe Pete Carroll knew something we didn't know.
I did a show earlier in the preseason, and I said something about the Seattle Seahawks. I didn't say they were going to go to the playoffs or anything, but I said, Pete Carroll's such a good coach that he'll have that team, near 500. And when you actually sort of look at what's transpired so far, I don't look like a genius on a lot of things, Brad, but that might be one of them. But like when I look at the Thursday night package, and last night for the first half of the game, I caught the Storm, the Hannah Storm version of it, which was very good. Where her and Andrea Kramer were interviewing some players, but like I look at this and honestly, like even if the Broncos had a full week of practice, like, do you really think the outcome would have been that much different? I mean, like it's like the same thing with Matt Ryan. Even if Matt Ryan had a full week of practice, do you really think like this outcome would have been that much different? Because these are both just hard to describe teams other than just simply saying their offenses are horrific and they both have good defenses. And that's what we saw, sort of happen last night.
Yeah. I mean, here's another thing about the Amazon games, Amazon Prime games. I was watching a couple weeks ago and they had 3 players on the panel and it was Tony Gonzalez and it was Fitzpatrick.
Yeah.
And it was, what's his name? The corner that played for Seattle. Richard Sherman. Yeah. And I thought, wow, this is great. You've got up front, you got Cal, you got Stanford, and you got Harvard, right? Isn't that where Fitzpatrick went? And then last night they added Andrew Whitworth, and I thought, wonder where he went to school, thinking that, they added another smart, and it was LSU.
He totally blew it. And by the way, Clarissa Thompson does a fantastic job hosting that show. And it's funny, that cast of characters, at least in my opinion, that they have on Thursday night for the pre and post game show and halftime show is way better than the cast of characters that Clarissa has to deal with on Fox on their on the pre-Sunday game kickoff show. And like the one thing I was like totally like looking forward to. So I was pulling for the Broncos last night just because I wanted to see Russell Wilson have to do the post-game interview at the desk, you know, where they bring out the winning quarterback or the player that made the difference in the game, and then they sit at the desk, and he was going to have to sit at the desk, you know, 2 spots down from Richard Sherman, and that would have been just like must-see TV for me. But anyways, I think we could go on and on and on about just how horrific.
Oh, I could go. Yeah, I could. This story has so many legs and so many sidebar things, but we should probably jump into this deal here because I know we both got a busy schedule. We had originally planned on picking that Broncos game, but then we delayed the show until today. So we went in a different direction. My first game is the Eagles at the Cardinals, and the Eagles are a 5.5-point favorite. Now, one thing I noticed this week, Dave, a lot of the spreads had huge jumps. I mean, there were some games that went up 5-7 points, stuff like that, and it was kind of hard to tell what it was. It was generally kind of related to maybe an injury or something, but this one jumped from 2 to 5.5. I couldn't really figure out why. The game's in Arizona, where Cards tend to play a little bit better. I thought the 5.5 was a little bit of a stretch. Cardinals need to start playing some better football. They're getting pretty close to getting, the big wide receiver back here. I think maybe next week or a week and a half, 2 weeks maybe. And I think it's time that Arizona shows up and plays the game. The Eagles have been a little bit of the darlings so far, but I just thought 5.5 was a little bit too much. At 2, I would have taken the Eagles. I still think they win the game, but I think it's a field goal game, so I'm going to take Arizona.
It's like it's so funny, Brad. I'm sitting here. I heard everything you said, and I've got an opinion, but like I can't stop thinking about the Bronco game last night. It was so bad. It was so bad. I'm sorry. I just got to get this in. It was so bad that when the game went to overtime, fans of the Broncos just left. They did. I don't know if you saw the mass exodus of fans just leaving the game last night.
How about this one, Dave? Is that John Elway?
Oh yeah,
he can't figure it out. This guy was one of the greatest quarterbacks of all times. How many quarterbacks has he gone through in the last 5-6 years since Peyton Manning? And let's face it, they won with Peyton Manning because their defense was great that year. Peyton Manning was very good.
All Peyton basically did towards the, he had no arm strength left, and he was a shell of his former self. I mean, that was like the cherry on top of a career winning a Super Bowl. I mean, that was all Bronco. That was Von Miller. That's really what that was. Yeah, the Broncos have been sort of reeling, and they've got a new ownership group. And it's funny, I texted another friend earlier in the day who's actually in Denver, and I said, I asked him, I said, what's going on with Elway? What is Elway's current role with this Denver Bronco team? And the only response I got was he needs to be fired. What
his current role is? Former great player. That's his current role. Yeah. And other than that, I haven't seen a lot from him. Look, and it's not. We all got fooled by it. Let's face it. I thought Russell Wilson going to Denver was going to be great. And you look at all the quarterback moves during the offseason, and the one that oddly has moved up, that has played the best and really wasn't even a move, is Geno Smith. I mean, who would have thought that? Again, Pete Carroll looks like the genius. But hey, I didn't see that coming.
Brad, sometimes statues just belong outside. It's like like the statue of the player doesn't needs to stay outside of the football stadium and not allowed in the front office. I always thought Elway did an okay job, especially on the at least getting that defense built out. But the offensive side of the ball, it's just shocking how bad they've been.
The Colts went from having the best offensive line in football 12 months ago to maybe having the worst. I mean, that offensive line is a mess.
It's a wreck.
And then you got a guy back there.
And they got her. I mean, at one point I felt bad for Matty Ice in that game, I have to say it. All right. So quickly back to the after I derailed this, back to the Eagles at the Cardinals. Like, what I'm wondering is if, like, would Cardinal fans leave if the game was tied 9-9 at halftime? I couldn't believe what I was watching with one of those franchises whose fans are diehard. They understand the game. They're not like fans of a team where it's just fun to go party and they're just there to hang out. That, like, they understand what's going on and they're so disgusted that they just left. Would a Cardinal fan do that at 9-9? I don't think so. Anyways, I look at this game and this is the perfect opportunity for that old Miami Dolphins football team. The one that went undefeated and pops the champagne once every year. This is a perfect opportunity for them to pull something off this week. I just look at this dysfunction in this Cardinals organization, and you said it. You were like, oh, I think they're going to finally, turn things around. I just don't think it's going to be this week. There's all sorts of stuff, continuing to leak out about Cliff Kingsbury and his quarterback not getting along, and that stuff seems to get worse at home. And I could see the Eagles getting up really fast on this Cardinal team, and too far in front. So I'm gonna go ahead and stick with the Eagles in this one.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Eagles will win the game. I just thought the 5.5 was a little bit too much for me, and so. But I think you're going to find I'm going to agree with you on a lot of your games, maybe all of them. I mean, I thought you picked the easy ones this week, and so what do you got for me?
Yeah, I went super easy. We probably don't even have to spend too much time on.
All right, let's quit. We can go back to the Broncos game.
Let's just do an hour on the dysfunction of the Bronco organization. And it's unloyal fan base that I'd never leave a football game early, let alone when it's tied going into overtime, despite how bad my team was playing. Where's the loyalty, Denver? Anyways, Lions at the Patriots. I mean, like, how happy would a Lions fan be to be tied going into overtime? I can't imagine a Lions fan leaving disgusted that their team had actually made it to overtime. So Lions at the Patriots.
Well, if Jared Goff hasn't scared him away, a tie game's not going to scare him away.
It's going to scare him away. Exactly. So, the Lions last week, as we all know, made Geno Smith into, statistically, if you look at it, Geno Smith should be right there with Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen in that MVP category. I mean, he's put up MVP style numbers so far for the Seattle Seahawks. If Geno could just play the Detroit Lions every week, he might have a real shot at that MVP. That defense was just horrific last week for the Detroit Lions. I don't see him getting much better. I mean, I'm assuming the Patriots offense isn't nearly as potent as Geno Smith is right now. But I do like the Patriots at home. I think this is a rebound game for Bill Belichick. Two really great coaches going head to head. I think Belichick's going to find a way to win by more than 3.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I whiffed last week on one prediction. I remember I was talking about the Colts and the Titans, I believe it was, and how the Colts had their one rush defense, and
it was my one last, and it
kind of went the other way.
To you, I was so mad at you last weekend.
Right, and I understand why. But there is one thing that now I think we can decide I think we figured out the Lions aren't very good against the run. They can't do it with Mac Jones down, and who knows if he's going to play this week for the Patriots. And I don't even know if their backup is healthy. I mean, I can only see New England trying to run the ball. They're playing at home. Their defense is still pretty stingy. Amon-Ra St. Brown still isn't practiced this week for Detroit. I don't know if DeAndre Swift is going to be available. So I'm with you. New England at home is always hard to bet against. -3. I think that's a safe pick on my end.
Yeah, and just looking at this thing with Dan Campbell, as much as I want to be on that Dan Campbell bandwagon, it's becoming increasingly harder and harder. And I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, nice guy, but it just doesn't seem like things are going to work out too well. And by the way, there's been a lot of nice guys that have coached at Detroit that things didn't work out too well for. I remember Wayne Fonts might have been the last guy that got him to the playoffs. He was a nice guy. But anyways, on to my next one, Bengals at Ravens. The Ravens are a 3.5-point favorite. Started out as a 1-point favorite. I can't really figure out why that thing has jumped 2.5 points. The Bengals seem to be kind of finding their footing as a team. John Harbaugh, we haven't talked about this one just because it was so overshadowed by that Bronco game last night. But the call that he made late in that game, I mean, I don't know. I think I was texting you saying, how does Harbaugh keep his job? That you continuously see this out of this guy. He makes a lot. Look, he won a Super Bowl, over a decade ago? And since then, I think in the last 10 years, they've won 2 playoff games, Dave. That's it. And so there's a guy that's living off his past history. But, I continuously see this out of this guy once or twice a year where he loses a game just on horrific calls. How you can justify going for it on 4th down with like 3 minutes left in the game and all you need is a field goal to win the game. It's a tie game. And then trying to go on camera afterwards and justify it. To me, just stand in front of the camera like the guy from the Lions does and say, it's my fault. Yeah. And people will have sympathy for you, right? Anyways, I think there's a lot of spillover from that. I think there's upset in the locker room over that. And I think the Bengals are coming in, and they got him last year. I think they're going to get him again this year. I'll take the 3.5 points and the Bengals. I don't see them losing by more than a field goal, Dave.
Yeah, I'm with you on this. I'm going to go ahead and take the Bengals and thank you very much for the points. Maybe the Bengals don't win the game. Maybe the Ravens sort of figure out how to pull something off, I guess. But it is one bad coaching decision after another in the NFL so far this season. And, we need to call those things out. Last night, 4th and 1, I appreciate that they didn't go for the tie in overtime, to make it 12-12. I appreciate that they decided to go for to go for it and try to win the game. But run the ball there. It is insane to me that they decided to not run the ball for a yard.
I don't even appreciate that they went for the win, Dave. I really don't. Nobody had scored a touchdown in 60 minutes of football. What made them suddenly think they were going to score a touchdown? I mean, you take the tie, worst case scenario. It's been a horrific game. Both teams don't deserve to win. Neither one really deserved to win.
Yeah, I was just like, all they needed was a yard at least. Like, they wouldn't have scored a touchdown. They needed like 3 yards for a touchdown. So at least get the yard. But yeah, Harbaugh's decision to not put points on the board is so like, who are the people on the coaching staff that thought that was a good decision, especially with how the other team was coming back on them. It is just one bad thing after another. And you're absolutely right. Just stand in front of the podium and accept responsibility for the mistake. Just get up there and say you made a mistake. It's okay. We'll forgive you for that. But look, this Bengals team is starting to get better. The offensive line is starting to get better. I looked at this game and I was definitely torn because I am a big fan of Lamar Jackson. I am a big fan of that offense, but their Ravens defense is just not what we thought it was going to be at this point of the season. Maybe it's the shakeup, getting rid of their defensive coordinator has really impacted this team more than you might have imagined. So I'm just going to roll with the Bengals who seem to be getting hot and seem to be on a roll at this point.
Yeah, I just think, the Bengals have the capability of putting up a lot of points. I got a sense that that's one of those teams that, really missed the preseason schedule with players not playing. But they're fairly healthy coming in, and I think there's a lot of spillover upset from that game last week for Baltimore.
Yeah. All right, next up, Brad, I've got a game that, we like to say nobody's going to be watching. I'm not even sure people in their home market, well, maybe in Tennessee, but I'm pretty sure nobody in Landover, Maryland is going to be watching this game because I pretty much guarantee it's not going to be sold out. So they might actually get blacked out on this one. Titans had the Commanders. Titans are favored on the road by 3. Biggest error that I made last week was listening to you on the Colts Titans game. I flip-flopped on it. I guarantee I will not be flip-flopping on my decision now. Get Mike Vrabel every year. He's also a very good coach. He usually gets figures out how to make his teams at least good enough to have them in and near the playoffs. They're not as good as they were last year, but Vrabel's still going to figure some stuff out. So I look at this, and unless the sleeping dog of Carson Wentz wakes up magically and revisits the early days of his Philadelphia Eagles career, I don't see this Commanders team having enough on the defensive side of the ball, which has been disappointing so far, to stop Derrick Henry and that running game.
Yeah, I don't think either one of these teams is very good defensively. The Titans are a puzzling team. I never really know quite what to make of them. I pick them, and then they look bad. I pick against them, they look good.
You should flip-flop and go with the Commanders then.
Well, the Commanders, we know they're just bad, all right? And so there's just not a lot of talent there. And like you said, Derrick Henry's a reliable tool. It's another team that I think is starting to wake up a little bit. Tennessee, after not playing much during the preseason. So I thought on the road in Maryland, against an organization that just seems to be in a free fall of any hope. I'm going to take the Titans. I'm along with you. I'm going to give the 3 points.
Yeah. The Commanders at some point this season, just because that NFC East division on paper is so bad, has got to get some more wins.
Well, the biggest story right now in Washington is that the guy coming back after he got shot in the leg, right? I mean, is that if that's your big story of the week, that you got a guy coming back after he got shot in somewhere during the preseason in the leg, that means there's not a lot to talk about in Washington, D.C.
Definitely not a lot. All right, let's move on.
All right, so next one's kind of an interesting one. It's the Texans at the Jaguars. And the Jags finally got their first taste of defeat a little bit. They're -7 at home, which I found to be a lot. And I think they're a good team. I mean, the Texans haven't won yet. I think they're the only team without a win, but they've actually played – they're kind of like Detroit. They've played tough at times. Yeah. And going to Jacksonville, I just kind of thought that this line is elevated maybe a little bit beyond what it should be. I think 4.5, 5 would be a good line for Jacksonville to be favored by, but I thought 7 was a little rich for my blood. So I'm going to take the Texans. They desperately need to win or make a game of a game. And so I thought 7 was a little too much. I'm going to go with Houston.
Yeah, I'm definitely not on any kind of Jacksonville Jaguar bandwagon. I want to preface what I'm about to say with that. I looked at this Texans team. I want them to do well, because it's one of those teams that's supposed to be really bad this year. And despite the fact that they're the only team left in the NFL that hasn't gotten a win, I still think, like you said, they played really hard. Lovie Smith has them doing a lot of the right things, and they've come close a couple times. It's just not enough depth or talents, sort of across the board on this team. The rookie running back finally sort of broke out a little bit last week. So that's a good sign. But outside of Brandon Cooks, can you name another offensive wide receiver or tight end on that team right now? And I just sort of look at this Jacksonville Jaguars defense. I think this is coaching right now, and I think Doug is going to have them ready to go. I could see them winning by double digits. I agree. I don't like the 7. It does feel a little high, but I'm going to go and roll the dice and go with the Jags in this one.
Yeah, I got to say, you'll probably be right on that. But anyways, I'm sticking with my original. I still say 7's a little too rich, and just based on principle, I'm taking Houston. I don't know what kind of principles they are, but.
All right, Brad, let me take you to London for the back-to-back weeks next. We've got the Saquon Barkley Giants heading to London for a Green Bay Packers home game in London. Aaron Rodgers apparently super excited about this game. Packers are favored by a whopping 8 points in this game, and I think so lowly of the New York Giants right now. I don't even know if that's an appropriate phrase, but I'm going with it. That I think that Aaron Rodgers has started to figure some things out with the younger wide receivers. Sometimes it just takes time for these guys to figure it out. There's been a lot of drop passes in the NFL so far this season by both veterans and rookies. I don't recall a start of the season feeling as sloppy as the first 4 weeks have felt in the NFL. And like I'm seeing, wide open wide receivers drop passes, in plays where you're not hearing footsteps. So that being said, Aaron Rodgers is definitely going to sort of get this team back on track. I'm going with the Pack, partially because I just don't believe in the Giants at all.
Yeah, I'm right with you. When I think of the Packer team, I still think they have a pretty decent defense, and their offense is very young. What I really like is that finally the coach there has figured out that Aaron Jones is the better running back between he and Dillon. And, he used him a lot more last week. Jones is a special player, and I just think they need to keep feeding him the ball. The young kids are the young kids, and at least they've got Aaron Rodgers thrown to them, right? And so he's going to make a lot of people look better. I just have a sense that the Giants can't match point for point. If it has to be a tempo game for them, they have to slow it down and keep it close. If they get behind, they really don't have the weapons to catch up. So, Aaron Rodgers says he feels good about going over there. He wants to go to the pubs and have a Guinness. I heard him say earlier in the week. So I hope he gets plenty of those Guinness in him. And I'm with you. I'm taking the Packers, and I'm giving the 8 points.
I hope he doesn't touch the sauce until after. until after the game. But I look at AJ Dillon, by the way, I really like. But you're right, Brad. The best time to use AJ Dillon is at the end of a half or end of a game when the defenses have been on the field for quite some time and they're tired, because then he's a load to take down. But sort of put him in a platoon mode I think sort of, running backs do need their reps. And they've got to fail, 2 times before they succeed. And so these dual running back threats don't always work. And I thought what they did really well with AJ Dillon last year is they used him a lot more in the second half when defenses got tired. So, but yeah, I'm definitely on the pack ride this week, and I can't imagine my daughter, who's in London, told me this week that she saw actual Green Bay Packer fans rolling around town.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Steelers are at the Bills, Dave. And this is a line that started at Buffalo being favored by 8. It is now up to 14. I mean, that thing is just ballooned.
Yeah, I went to bed one night. It was 8. Woke up the next morning. It was 14.
Unbelievable, right? Tomlin has named the young kid Pickett as the starting quarterback. That might have been it. Maybe people thought, okay, well, the Bills have got a great defense. They're going to stick him out there against a rookie quarterback. I agree with them entirely. I mean, the Bills have one of the better defenses. Jordan Poyer's not going to play this week, but that's just one guy. The Steelers, I think, with a young quarterback, aren't going to be that challenging to figure out. Frankly, well, maybe they will be. I mean, maybe just the element of surprise. I don't know, but I also saw that Dawson Knox not going to play for Buffalo, but Gabe Davis is going to play, and I think that makes him a little more dangerous and a little more quick strike. I could see the Bills getting up early and often in this thing, and Steelers just do not have the weapons with a young quarterback to play catch up with this Buffalo team. I'm going to take the Bills. I'm not really thrilled about the 14 points, but I think there's a reason why it went up 6 points, Dave. And I think Buffalo is just a far superior football team.
I mean, it's amazing in the NFL how just one player can have a huge impact on a line and quite frankly, how a team plays. So, losing TJ Watt was the thing that's just like the Steelers have actually, I think they're like 0-8 when he's been out. It's a shocking stat. But in the same way, their defense is so much better when he's there. Kenny Pickett, who I've been sort of calling for him to just become the starter since the start of the season. Just has this thing that Mitch Trubisky doesn't have, which is some flair. And he's got some energy. And energy in life is good. Like you want to, like in your day-to-day job, you don't want to work with boring, slouchy people. You want to work with people that have some energy every once in a while. Yeah. I mean, so like like Pickett comes into the game. I wasn't at all surprised that the Steelers suddenly had an extra little hop in their step on both sides of the ball. He did throw 3 picks, 2 of which weren't his fault. But there's 3 picks against the kid. And I look at this and I'm like, look, I'm not sitting here saying that the Steelers are going to win this game. I believe Pickett is going to do enough to keep it under 14. I know it feels crazy, but I am going with Mike Tomlin and Pickett on this one. And if I were the Buffalo Bills, I would figure out how to prevent Pickens from getting open in this game, because that's the one guy Pickett at this point feels comfortable with. I mean, I'm sure the Bills know what we know. So they'll probably try to take him away. But like, how many passes have you seen Chase Claypool drop this year? Like,
you know what I think the Bills are going to be saying in this game, Dave? As soon as the ball that goes in the air, they're going to say, "Pick it," right? That's what I think is going to. I think he's going to get picked a lot. And he threw 3. I don't know. Look, he's a young kid. I know they're jacked up about him, and but here's the reality. They're not a very good football team. Yeah. The Steelers. It's not the Steelers that we knew 10 years ago. Their offensive line is not very good, and I think that's an awkward position to put a kid in, naming him the starting quarterback right before he plays one of the best defenses in the league. I don't understand it. At least wait till half.
This
right?
Is what legends are made of.
At least wait until halftime.
I love it. All right. Let's see. Is it my pick next?
Indeed.
All right. So Bears at Vikings. I'm playing the over under on this. 43 points is the line there. Simply put, look, I'm not at all sold on this Viking team on either side of the ball, honestly. Their record feels a little better than the performances I've actually seen on the field, if we're being totally, honest with ourselves here. But this Bears team, speaking of bad football, like, I feel bad for the Amazon Corporation. Not often, but this is one of the times I feel bad. They spent billions and billions of dollars so they can give us the Chicago Bears at home against the Washington Commanders next Thursday night. Like, they should demand a refund for that game. So look, this has a Viking win written all over it. I would expect Kirk Cousins to, throw a couple touchdowns. There'll be a couple Alexander Madison rushing touchdowns, because Dalvin will get a nick. And we'll miss the second half of the game. And there'll be an interception return for a touchdown. For the love of God, though, Brad, if for some reason the Vikings lose this game, forget about the over-under. But if they lose this game, are you calling for a regime change?
Yeah, I'm not liking what I'm seeing so far. That's all I'm going to say. I mean, it's early. They've had 4 games, the Vikings. Look, Kirk Cousins isn't winning anything. He's not winning any championships. He's not a very good football player, Dave. I mean, he's one of these guys that beefs up his stats during. You know how the guys in baseball who like hit a home run when it doesn't matter. I mean, there's always a couple of those guys that, they're like the pile-on guy. They hit a home run when the game is over and it's 9-0. Yeah, that's Cousins. He beefs up his stats in a no-win situation, and he beefs up his stats in a no-lose situation. I think the Vikings are a better football team than Chicago. I just don't think the young kid there, Justin Fields, has a lot of weapons. I'm going to agree with you, and I'm going to take the over. I'm not particularly thrilled about it, but I do see the Vikings kind of opening things up this week. There's been, the Viking fans are not very happy about Cousins, which means they're going to put him in a position to get the ball to Justin Jefferson, a couple touchdowns, and I think they'll score some points and they'll win that game handily. I'm not thrilled about the 43, but that's more about the Bears than the Vikings. I just don't think the Bears have a lot.
Yeah.
But I see the Vikings scoring at least 27 in this one and winning it like 27 to 20 or something.
I could see this game being like 28-21 just because this new Viking defense hasn't really gelled at all. And it's a perfect defense actually for a bad offense to have an opportunity against.
Is the running back for Chicago playing this week, Montgomery?
I think so.
Yeah. And one thing I saw last week, I've noticed so far this year, this Viking run defense is really soft. They are not very good. They might be able to get after it a little bit when it comes to the quarterback, but any type of power running game, and they just wilt quickly.
No, and then like if you want to throw a 5-yard out or a 10-yard button hook, just using two just standard 1950s National Football League terms, it works against this defense. It is like you just watch, like the center of that field is going to be wide open for the taking. And something does happen. I will say this about the style of defense that they're playing. Something does happen in the second half of a game where they're it's like a prevent defense. That's what I feel like they're playing the whole time.
We're throwing out all the. How about this one? Bend but don't break. How's that? There's another one.
Brad, sometimes in life you just need to matriculate the ball down the field. All right.
They're good between the 20s.
Good between the 20s.
So we're both agreeing on that one. Then we're going over. Is that the deal?
We're going over. I mean, part of it was really seriously was that I just don't believe in the Viking defense. That I was like, yeah, the Vikings are going to get their points, but I think the Bears are too.
All right, my final game is clearly one that nobody cares about, and that is the Seahawks at the Saints. Man, as bad as
the Saints what they want.
The Saints are horrendous, are they not? I mean. And the Seahawks, I just got to believe that Geno Smith's going to turn back into Geno Smith. The over-under on this thing is 46.5, which I found to be a little bit high. I mean, this feels a little bit more like that Viking Bears game than it does, one of the other higher scoring games, Eagles Cardinals, for instance. But I'm going to take the under in this one. I just feel like the Seahawks, I think the Saints actually still have a pretty decent defense. Geno Smith's ready to turn back into Geno Smith. They're on the road. It's a little harder to do it on the road. The Saints are still really nicked up. I think this thing is going under. 46.5 seemed too high to me.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm not going to do my whole Dennis Allen rant. I think, I'm right about that. But I their defense is still, good enough. There are, some good defenses in this league, and the Saints defense is definitely there's enough depth on that defense to shut down the Geno Smith juggernaut for sure. The running game is the thing that where I think the Saints have some issues on the defensive side of the ball. I just sort of looked at this and said, I'm not expecting the Seattle explosion. I'll be very impressed, honestly, if Seattle wins this game. I mean, this should be a Saints victory, but that being said, because let's just face it. I mean, like the Seattle team's just not that good yet. They're sort of living on tricks to keep this team afloat at 2-2, and as good as a job as I think Pete Carroll has done, like they shouldn't beat the Saints in this game. This should be a Dennis Allen victory, but probably won't because it's Dennis Allen.
Yeah, I just think like the Seahawks, they got some guys that just nobody wants to believe in, but they just kind of keep producing. Rashad Penny, remember the run he went on last year at the end of the year? He had like two or three games where he had like over 200 yards rushing in the game, and I think over the last 6 or 8 weeks of the season, he might have even led the league in rushing. Rashad Penny, I was like, who's this guy? And Geno Smith's just kind of playing within himself, and they still do have a couple of wide receivers in Tyler Lockett and
DK Metcalf. I mean, they've got two. I always loved Tyler Lockett. I don't think he's lost a step or anything like that. DK Metcalf's great. They just do like they'll do occasionally like some really good game planning.
And Pete Carroll's always been a good defensive coach.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think it's good. What did we took under, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we took the under that thing. So I just thought 46.5 was quite a few points. I see this being more of a 24-17 type game.
Yeah. I agree. Okay. Last game we have for you this week is our Monday Night Football game with the Raiders of Las Vegas heading into the land of Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, Andy Reid, and the rest of the Kansas City Chiefs. This is a over-under game. The over-under on this one is a whopping 51 points. There'll be very little defense played in this game. When there is defense played, there'll probably be pick sixes involved. So I'm sort of like looking at this, and I'm just going to go ahead and take the over. I think this is just going to be a high scoring affair, and it's going to be the opposite of what we suffered through last night. It's going to be fun football, and that's what we want. we are in the world of instant gratification, Mr. Hoysev, and Thursday night's football game took us back to the black and white era of the National Football League.
Yeah, I mean, I remember last week, I think I was texting you because I'm watching the Chiefs game and I'm going, man, this guy Mahomes is just playing like a different game than Cousins. It's like It doesn't even look like the same game, right? Yeah. You remember last year about this time when Kansas City was really struggling and they couldn't figure anything out, and Mahomes seemed to be coming like a conservative quarterback, and well, it seems like they've figured those things out. They don't appear to miss Tyreek Hill as much as people thought they would. Mahomes is getting a billion people involved. I mean, everybody's catching balls everywhere. And, I don't see the Raiders as a team that's going to stop that. At the same time, the Raiders tend to play the Chiefs fairly tough. And so I think it's a good game. It's a fun one to watch usually. I think the Chiefs win this game, but I'm with you right there. I think it's a high-scoring affair. I wouldn't be surprised at all if one of the teams was in the 40s themselves. So, to me, 51.5 didn't seem like an outrageous number.
I have to say, I wouldn't be surprised if the Raiders won this game. I'm not throwing money down on it, but it wouldn't surprise me. These it's a AFC West rivalry game. Raiders have more on the line than the Chiefs have. It's just fun football. I still, for the life of me, cannot understand why Kansas City fell asleep against the Indianapolis Colts.
Hey, by the way, Clyde Edwards-Helaire got hurt last week. I don't know I think he's out, right? And so I think Kansas City's a more dangerous team without him. I don't think he's a great running back in this league. I think Jerick McKinnon does some things really nicely. The young kid that they played last week, the rookie Pacheco, I think it was.
Yeah.
kid ran hard. He was phenomenal, I thought. And so I think the young kid, I think, actually inspired them and gave them energy as a team. And I've never seen Hilaire do that. So I think it's a more dangerous team without him on the field.
Yeah, I mean, I like Hilaire, and I think he's a nice second back. So they definitely needed to go out and bring in a rookie and bring in some other people. But Hilaire does a really nice job catching screen passes and turning those.
But Dave, you and I would do a good job catching screen passes. Come on, that's not.
I mean, Patrick Mahomes, like, what was the word used last week? He's a magician out there. And he is, and it's fun, and it's not boring. And and I have to say, Rams offense, boring. Vikings offense, boring. I mean, we can go down the line. I mean, there's, at least the Ravens offense isn't boring in the first half. And the same thing can be said for the Eagles offense in the first half. And then they both become extraordinarily conservative in the second half of their games. Whereas the Cardinals are extraordinarily boring in the first half. And then they let the Cardinals go in the second half.
Yeah, the Cardinals are right in there with the Baltimore Ravens and some of these teams where I just call it a gimmick. It's gimmicky. It's not overly exciting. What I like is I like smart football. Like I watch guys like Rodgers and Brady and Josh Allen to a certain extent and Mahomes, and I feel like they are in control. Wholeheartedly in control. You get in the last 2 minutes, they don't even need a coaching staff on the sidelines because they already know what to do. I watched Kirk Cousins in the first move, they get in a 2-minute offense, and he does this move right here.
Yeah.
He's listening for the plays. You've been in the league for 11 years. You don't know how to run a 2-minute offense?
Yeah. I mean, can't even believe I'm going to say this, and you'll hate it, but Matt Ryan last night leading. Like their team had been beat up the whole game, and he leads them all the way down the field.
Matt Ryan knows how to play the game.
He knows how to play.
Smart. Yeah. He's just old. His tools are diminished. I mean, he can't run at all. He's a fossil. He's basically a statue in the pocket. And when you don't have a good offensive line, it's a terrible recipe. But he does know how to run an offense.
I was like, what are they doing with Matt Ryan? I mean, like, I think I joked about it last week. Who's the old quarterback that the Colts are going to go after next year? But I think Matt Ryan's got a job in coaching. I think is he just going to roll into the quarterbacks coach for the Colts next year? Is that the plan? Like, you see Frank Reich on the sidelines, and I saw him in the post game. Press conference, as well as in their locker room. And it's like that's Matt Ryan's team. That's not Frank Reich's team. It's like Matt Ryan's coaching both sides of the ball. You've always sort of like not liked Matt Ryan. I've always sort of been on the other side with Matt Ryan. But I have said, that he did need to retire quite some time ago. And it was just hard. But you're right. In the last 2 minutes of the game, when you needed him to drive the ball down the field against a defense that he hasn't been able to do anything against all day, he did it twice. And that's a veteran quarterback that knows what they're doing.
Yeah. When if a guy's good and he knows what he's doing this. He's pointing. He's telling where guys to go. A guy that doesn't know what the hell he's doing.
Yep.
He's listening for the play because he doesn't know how to handle the situation. And that's Cousins. It's always been Cousins' problem. He still hasn't fixed it. You're not going to fix it. And that Viking team is not going to win anything important until they replace him. Never.
You can always, and we got to get out of here, but you can always tell this about like good quarterbacks when they're at the line, and when they're making adjustments, right or wrong.
Here's one that killed me last week, Dave. I think I texted you on this one. Sorry, I got to get into this. I'm sorry, I got to get into this. How many times did we see Kirk Cousins rush up to the line, and the announcers would say, "Oh, Vikings are going up tempo," and it was like he'd get up there, and all of a sudden, okay, then he would back off, and he would wait for the play to come in. And yeah, I get it. They're trying to look at what the defense is lining up. They're not allowing the defense to make substitutions. How about getting up there, calling an audible, and running a damn play?
Yeah, just get the thing moving. But like I look at the quarterbacks in the National Football League, and there's less than 10 of them that really seem to know what they're doing when it comes to adjustments in game, in play. And those guys are fun to watch. I mean,
they are. They're playing a different game.
Playing a completely different game. And everybody else is just boring. And back to Russell Wilson, like, you wouldn't know, like, if you just landed on planet Earth and went to a Denver Bronco game, you'd be like, why'd you pay that guy $48 million? What the hell? Like, that doesn't make any sense. You people don't do financing well on this earth.
That team's in trouble, by the way. That left tackle's probably going to be gone now. It's a bad offensive line going in, and it got worse last night.
And Hackett's can't make any adjustments.
No. Hackett, you turned me on to get the Hackett. Who's going to be the first coach fired this year, Dave?
Matt Rule.
Man, you were quick on that.
Matt Rule's gone. I feel bad, but because I want Matt Rule to do well, and it's not fair to Matt Rule when you look in your quarterback room and your choices are.
You were quick. That was. I got to tell you, I just threw it out there. I didn't know you were going to have that quick of an answer, but you must be on the Matt Rule watch.
I am. I'm watching at halftime as always. I don't think that new owner in Carolina is going to put up with much more. That's a game I looked at. 49ers favored by, I think, 6 going into this game. And I think Kyle Shanahan's a good coach. I don't think he's a great coach. I, to some degree, think he's a little bit overrated when you actually look at his record, but he has gone to the Super Bowl, and he has been in the NFC Championship game. So when his teams are on a roll, Kyle Shanahan does a good job. But this is a typical Kyle Shanahan travel across the country and lay an egg type game. I hope it doesn't happen, because that 49er defense is so good. But I could see them preserving Matt Rule's job for another week.
All right, we got to get out of here.
All right. I think that's it for the Gods of Odds for week number 5.
But next week, we're going to have to start our top 5. We'll have to arrange a top 5 guys that are going to get fired first, and so we'll see how from week to week how that thing changes. How's that?
Yeah, that sounds good. We'll have that for week 6 for next week. All right. Thanks for joining us on Gods of Odds. That's Brad Hoysep over there in beautiful Southern California. I'm Dave DeBoff in Northern California, wishing you all a tremendous rest of your sports viewing week.